Here we go. All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. We are going to go back to basics. Last few episodes, we've talked about the current goings on in the world and how they have affected us, but there's really not much more to talk about. Things are opening back up. But it's perfect time for us to talk about the basics because that's what's kept us moving throughout all this upheaval in the market. And, I guess we could kind of start with these people are really upset with brokers right now. I think they've needed to find a boogeyman to go after with the market conditions as they have been. And, there's kind of some fundamental ignorance there about how economics works and how freedom works and how liberty works. And, so let's get back to the basics. So we have maintained our fleet through this. Our drivers have made money. Nobody's had to go home. Nobody's been laid off. Larry, where would you want to begin if we try to drill in on the basics of business and how that fundamental works in every market? And it worked in 2018 and it works now.
Well, I mean, if you boil it down to the most simple concepts, and this is certainly not anything that most people don't understand, is that you have to operate your business in a highly efficient, extremely aware of cost and costs that you can control, attention to efficiency. And these are the kinds of environments where this really, really pays off and actually, in most cases, will keep you from being a casualty of the situation. In good times, it just affords you to be highly profitable. But in rough times, it allows you to stay in business, So it's not something we created for this. For me, it actually was born out of this recession, or whatever you want to call it, back in 2009, because that's when I kind of started with being an owner-operator. And so I learned how to be an owner-operator in one of the biggest recessions we'd had since, in our lifetime. So it was born out of necessity, but it just was something that if I was going to be able to be successful, be profitable, I had to be able to control cost. And, bringing non-trucking industry or business experience to this, it just made sense that I look at this like any other business. And the one thing that is different about trucking and independent or owner operators that you don't see in most other businesses is that people get into this industry or this segment of the industry highly leveraged, and that is one of the biggest problems that we're having right now, is that with rates, that's why everybody's in Washington, D.C. bitching about the rates, because they can't afford to haul freight at the rates that are currently in the marketplace and service the debt. So, and when you're allowed to lease a truck or buy a truck with no money down, and the payments are $700, $800, $900 a week, and the rates go from $3 or $4 a mile to $1 a mile, well, you squeal, and you start acting desperate, and you start being a fool and start blaming everybody else. But the problem is not. I mean, there may be some problems in this. Don't get me wrong. There's been examples of people posted up where brokers have inflated their margins, but they do that because, you know, at this point in time, people are so desperate that they think they have to do what they got to do. But the simple fact of this is that if you can control your costs and be in a position of I guess with reserves and running the business, so nobody, no other business that I can think of can you go get a lease for 100% of the business and go into business with something you've never done before. And I know people are going to say, well, but I've been driving for 20 years, but driving and being in business aren't the same skill set, And this is why people are hurting right now, is because they don't understand business. So they're reaching out for help, and they don't really understand what they're asking for, because that help comes with a lot of strings attached to it. We spent a lot of years getting out from under that help. We finally did it with the Motor Carrier Act, and now everybody wants to go right back to it because they don't understand history. They don't know what it was like. When you say regulate, they don't understand. None of these people would be in business if we were back in regulated industry. There'd be no owner operators. Certainly not to the extent that we have right now. You'd have to pay a lot of money to buy a lane, and these people don't have money to buy a truck, much less buy a lane.
Well, to that point, isn't it kind of funny that the outlaw is romanticized? So my best friend is looking at buying a truck right now, right? We've both talked to him, and we've gone back and forth. And so he calls this guy about a truck, and it was like a $9,000 International. And he records the call and sends it to me so I can hear it. It's typical good old boy. And Zeke says something like, well, it doesn't have all those emission stuff on. That's why I like it. And the guy says, well, the best thing about it is it's a 99 and you don't have to run that ELD. That's the best thing about it. And I'm thinking,
sure,
ELD is the least of your problems. But we romanticize the outlaw, right?
Right. Sure.
But what they don't realize is that in the regulated market back in the 70s, the outlaws were outlaws because what they were doing was illegal. Yeah. The reason they were running around the scales with their lights off in the middle of the night was to escape the regulation that made it illegal for them to haul loads if they didn't own that lane.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been on the lane. Yeah,
that's why they were outlaws. They were breaking the law.
Or they were carrying products that they weren't authorized to carry.
Exactly.
The lane does not specify that product.
And so it's funny to me that you romanticize and you hold up the outlaw on this pedestal, but now you want to go make the environment regulated again to turn everybody into outlaws. Because in order for you to do what you do today, you would have to make what you do today illegal in order to get back to what you want. And guys, can we just stop for a second and think, if you think the government is the answer to the rate problem and you want the government to fix it, just a little glimpse through history should tell you who benefits from government regulation. It's not the small fleet. It's the really, really, really big fleet. Those are the ones that always benefit from the regulation. And have always benefited from the regulations because they have the money to pay off the lobbyists to go get in the politician's ear to write the law the way they want it to be. So I just find that ironic and funny.
Yeah. Well, and again, when you don't have a lot of business knowledge, you don't understand that when you ask somebody, to put a minimum on something, automatically there's going to be a maximum that goes with that. So let's just say that all this happens. Let's just say that someone does step in and applies some type of a minimum, rate. Well, what's going to happen when the tide turns again and the carrier's in the power position, and now all of a sudden there's a cap? They'll be back in Washington again, bitching because you're controlling what I can make. You're restricting what I can make. So it's funny how they only want everything to go their way, and it's very immature, and it reminds you of dealing with children, that only want everything, uh, it blows me away that these grown adults, grown ass men and women out here that are, quote, having a standoff, whatever the hell that means, in Washington D.C. now for 8 days or 11 days, whatever it is. What do they think it's going to happen? I mean, who's going, if they got what they want, where's it going to come from? No one can explain that to me. What if the government does put a minimum standard on a rate? How is that possibly going to be applied and utilized and implemented?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of their points that I've seen as I've read some articles about this is they want transparency. They believe that the broker is taking too much of the rate. Okay, so let's assume that there's one customer and there's one broker and there's one carrier, just in a little linear line. And they say, well, I should know, I should have access to the information of how much the customer, the shipper, is paying that broker. And then we can just lock down the fee that the broker gets. And then it's all transparent. And I get to know what okay, well, that's not evil in any way, well, let's all see the contract. Okay, that's fine. But you know how, and this is one of the reasons that independent authority never really appealed to me. I'm not a great salesman. I would rather have my fingernails pulled out than to go knock on doors and solicit customers, right? So I would need an agent, or I would either need an agent to do that for me, or I would need to hire a salesman to do that for me and then give them a piece of the action. Well, if you want to know what the shipper's paying, just go get some direct customers. And guys like Kenny Long and Rico Muhammad and there's another guy I'm forgetting, but they teach that. That don't just depend on the spot market, because when times are good, you can make a living in the spot market and not have to do the sales and not have to do the follow-up and not have to massage these customers and give them what they want and blow smoke up their rear end and all that kind of stuff. But right now, and I said this on a previous episode, when I would write down the list of all the reasons it's better to be leased than independent, and I would give you all these reasons. It was about insurance and cost and all that, but it never dawned on me until now that direct customers is huge, because my rate has not changed one penny in the last 6 weeks. And we've had, with our 5 trucks, we've had drivers have their whole paycheck saved by one direct customer load that they signed a contract a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago for $3.50 a mile. And it doesn't matter what the spot market does. They have to pay that rate. And so if you are independent and you had gone out and done the hard work, as our friend Kevin says, if you had gone out and done the hard work and got that direct relationship with that customer, they might call you in the time like this and ask for something, and you could reciprocate. Well, yeah, hey, I'll give you a little break, but you keep me working, right? Because a 20% reduction is better than 100% reduction, and that's what a lot of people are dealing with right now. But if you want to know what the customer's paying, just go sell yourself to that customer and write that contract. You don't have to worry about a broker. But we have devalued in this industry. We've put truck drivers up on a pedestal that's way too high. And then everybody else is a piece of dog crap, and everybody else supposed to serve the driver. And, agents and brokers and third-party people, they're all just dirt, and we treat them that way. So you've got to have an attitude of service. And even in a time like this, I bet you might still be able to go out and make those sales calls, and you might be able to snag a customer in a market like this. But going to the government and expecting them to fix your problem, is it's ludicrous and it's counterproductive. And it shows you have no grasp of history of all the times that people have gone to the government and said, hey, help me. Oh, they helped you all right. They helped you right into bankruptcy.
Well, another
know?
thing I see that again shows a lack of understanding is they think that the position of the broker is not necessary. Let's get rid of brokers, But what they don't understand is that believe me, they do not want to deal with what the brokers deal with. They think that all they have to do is get a load and go drive the truck, But what they don't understand is that the customer's demands are all handled by the brokers, And the drivers typically are shielded from that. They're the ones answering all the questions. First of all, they're the ones who went out and made the sale and actually got the load. How are drivers? Lee, you said that you weren't a salesman. Well, I don't know very many drivers that I've met that would make very good salesmen either. And how successful would they be at going out knocking on doors and knocking on the hundreds of doors it takes to get the first shot at taking my freight, and then after that, keeping that customer happy, because every time that something goes wrong, somebody's got to go and explain to the customer why and pacify them and keep them from going to your competition. How good would drivers be at doing that? But yet they want to discount anything that the broker does as far as value because they're taking a percentage of the load. And in their examples, what they think is too high of a percentage. But what would the driver charge to do what they do? And we can give another example. Most independent owner operators, one of the reasons why they became owner operators was to get rid of the dispatcher. Okay, they hated their dispatcher. Well, let me tell you, most of the people that fail at Landstar fail because they don't have a dispatcher. Okay, because the driver that hated his dispatcher now understands what they had to go through to watch a load board all day and plan loads, and which they're horrible at, for the most part. And so now we want to get rid of the broker on top of getting rid of the dispatcher and so now it's completely upon the driver to be everything to a shipper, the face of the industry to the shipper, the follow-up. Don't even talk about the billing, So what we'll do there is we'll just get a factoring company and give them a big percentage of our money. It kind of reminds me of buying a car and beating up the car salesman, but then going into the finance office and just turning feet up, So we'll get rid of the broker, okay, but now we'll give all of our money to a factoring company because we can't handle the billing or can't wait 90 days to get paid. So you think the factoring companies might take advantage of that? You think that is going to be as competitive as it is right now? So it's just a lack of sophistication in understanding how business works. But look, you're not going to change that. I don't even know how this is going to turn out. I don't know. First of all, everything they want is available right now. If you're taking freight on a percentage basis, the laws exist right now that allow for you to exceed that invoice. Okay, that's not new. You can do that right now. Okay, so anybody that's dealing with a broker is not getting paid on a mileage basis. Typically, they're getting paid on a percentage of the load. They have every right to see what all that transaction looks like. Now, they might not be able to do it from the truck. They may have to go to the office and actually see it right there. I mean, I don't think the law allows for them to, to just send it to whoever asks for it, but it is available. So if that's what you want, you got that right now. Having another law is not going to make that any different. And the other thing is, why in this industry is it okay for me to demand to know what you paid for, in this case, a service? But if can you go into McDonald's and demand the manager there tell you what they paid for the hamburger that you paid for? I mean, who does that? Who, no other business does that. Why is it any of our business really to know what the wholesaler, the middleman, paid for a product? Up until the internet, that was a big secret anyway. Now with the internet, you can pretty much find out what a car dealer pays for a car. You can go on, you can find, pretty much what stuff cost. But if you're wanting to buy, I watch Shark Tank all the time, and I see products on there that sell for hundreds of dollars, and you find out that they paid $16 to make it. So does that hurt their sales? No, because the day after they're on Shark Tank, their sales go from a few 100,000 to a few million. So everybody knows what they paid, and they still bought the product.
Yeah, because value is subjective.
I don't get it. Okay, if the load is not attractive to you, move on. It's just that simple. Why do we want to regulate everybody so that a few people who can't take care of themselves get someone to protect them? I don't know. I don't think this is the basics we really want to talk about. The idea here is that, look, if it's not this problem, it'll be this business is cyclical. It comes and goes. It's up and down. We're dealing with a lot of stuff right now with this virus that we've never ever dealt with before. But states are opening back up again. People are getting tired of sitting at home. They can't wait to spend money. If a restaurant opens up, they're covered up to the point where So I mean, it's not going to take long before this the pendulum's going to swing the other way, and there's going to be huge demand, and all these people then they were crying about having a minimum are going to be bitching because now there's a maximum. They can't make what they want to make. It's just not fair that you control what I make. You can't what. But that's exactly what they're asking for. They just don't understand.
Well, let's do this. So because I think one of the things when I think about the basics, okay, it's a fundamental understanding. I've got to talk a lot about this with Zeke over the last few days as we've talked about buying a truck and having a general idea of what insurance costs, knowing that if you're going to buy a truck, you've got to pay a $22.90. Knowing what the steps are and understanding how the system works. We've seen, we can roll through Facebook groups with Landstar, and I'm sure it's the same with Mercer or Schneider or whoever. If you're leased to a carrier, there are people that don't take the time to understand how that system works. And then they don't want to, and really, frankly, they don't want to know how it works. They just want their professional at being angry and pissed off. And so instead of taking the time to call someone up and ask, well, how does the agent get paid? And what do I get for the money that I exchange to Landstar? They don't want to know. They just want to be mad, and they want to be ignorant. Ignorance is a choice. So what are those basics? Well, you need to know the difference between the insurance that you're responsible for if you're leased versus the insurance you're responsible for if you're having authority. You need to know how to calculate fuel taxes. You need to know how to calculate and forecast maintenance expenses. And you need to be able to report those. If you're at Landstar, you've got to report those every 120 days with your inspection. You've got to, you need to know how, if you're at least a Landstar, how to use those 120-day inspections to your advantage. Instead of running from them, run to them. Build a relationship with a good mechanic that can get under your truck every 120 days and help you not only pass the 120, but to have a better, a more reliable and more efficient vehicle. Because Lord knows with Carl, every time, what was it I had him doing something so funny. He was fixing an oil leak on a truck, And I walk up and he goes, "Now, I can't get without, I can't get under it without looking and finding stuff." And so he points out, well, hey, with this and this and this and this and this little stuff. But if it's left alone, those little things are going to become big things, and it was tighten up a bolt to where, hey, I think it was the carrier bearing. Your carrier bearing's a little. I'm gonna take that loose and I'm gonna straighten it. Just these little things, but that relationship saves us tens of thousands of dollars over.
But here's the irony in that. These guys will try to find somebody that will pass it without looking, because all they want to do is pass it.
Mm-hmm.
So they by that very nature, they're going someplace where the person does not do that, because that's what they're trying to avoid. Number one, they don't want to fix it. And number two, they really don't want to I don't even know how to explain it. They would rather take their chance, with it and go ahead and run and than to fix it. So instead of finding a place that will do that kind of work, they're looking, because they even get on Facebook. Where's the place I can go that won't, fail my truck? Well, dude, if your truck needs to be failed, it needs to be failed. Going someplace that won't fail it isn't doing you any favors, because when it fails, now you're on the side of the road under a load that you're going to have to repower now and lose all the money on, and you're going to have a tow bill when you were there already. The truck was on a lift or in a shop, and all you had to do was pay to fix the carrier bearing instead of it going out down the road somewhere, while the guy already was there. But that's just a backwards way that most guys, or a lot of guys, don't say most, but a lot of guys will do. Look, we bought a truck that a previous BCO had just paid somebody to do an inspection on. And when Carl saw that truck, he said, "My God, there's not anything about this truck that would pass an inspection." And it hadn't been 10 days. It was in another shop and got a clean bill of health. We bought it with, it's passed a Landstar inspection. Yeah.
Yeah. Guy must have been blind and drunk, because that truck was, and guys, the reason Landstar does these 120s is so that when you pull in a scale and the DOT guy looks and sees that blue star, why is he going to waste his time? Because he's there to generate revenue. That's why he exists. Well, if he sees a truck coming, then he knows there's a probably 95% chance that truck's going to pass an inspection. Why would he waste his time inspecting your truck? He ain't going to get no money out of you. And that's why Landstar does that. I mean, they do it to make sure that drivers keep their trucks safe and compliant, because CSA score hurt them too. Don't just hurt us.
But that's a byproduct of it. That's a side benefit of the fact.
Yeah. But we know, these trucks have to be maintained constantly, and
even when rates are low and the market's bad, you still have to you can't give up your maintenance program when times are bad. Okay. But that's the first thing that people do. Well, I'm not making any money. I'm going to let this go. That when people talk about buying trucks from fleets, that's a good way to buy a truck because it's been fleet maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you what the first thing a fleet does when they know they're going to sell a truck, or if they're in trouble business wise, is they quit doing maintenance on the trucks. So I don't necessarily agree with that strategy of buying a truck.
I went to work when I had been off the road a couple of years. In 2005, I found a company to go work for in down in your neck of the woods in Kentucky, and so I went through a couple of days orientation. They put me in a 9400 International, and so I got moved into it, and I fired up, and I start to move, and I got a real bad air leak, and I'm like, oh crap! So I go to the shop, and the guy goes, that we have been stealing parts off of that truck to keep the other ones running, and I'm thinking, and y'all put me in it. All right. So then I go down the road a day or two, and I go around a right-hand turn, and the cabinet falls off the wall and hits the floor. And then It was in the wintertime, and I go to put windshield washer fluid in it, and I pour it in, and it starts running right out the bottom because somebody had stole the little pump, and I'm like, this truck, guys, but that's what you can end up with a fleet. They'll just steal parts off of your truck and put them on another one. The idea is there. Well, sure, they're going to make sure that you do your PMs and stuff, but they're not going to give it the kind of detail that my truck that I'm driving right now, which is Larry's first truck that has almost 1.8 million miles on it. They're not going to maintain a truck that will last 2 million miles because they're not going to put that detail in. And that's why they get rid of them at 500,000, because they can make them somebody else's problem. But this truck has survived 1.75 million miles because it's had little stuff done to it every week or every month. And if you're going to do this, and you're going to take on the risk and the responsibility of being an owner operator, you've got to learn how your truck works. You've got to be able to identify these parts. You don't have to be able to change them. You can hire somebody else to do that, but you need to know the fundamental basics of how that stuff works so that somebody can't pull the wool over your eyes. As we talked about in our last episode with the ignition switch, you've got to be able to speak that vocabulary so that you can talk with a quality mechanic and you can diagnose things. And here, I think this is what it is. And, but.
Well, let's getting back to the basics again. When we first talked about this, I talked about how the highly leveraged business model is not the way to go and is impossible to do nowadays. So let's just explain what that is. We advocate buying a $10,000 to $15,000 truck. We prefer that it be a Freightliner or a Volvo with a Detroit engine. And you may say, well, why? Well, they're the least expensive engine to maintain. They're the easiest to get worked on. Every TA and Petro in the United States is a Freightliner service point. So you can get work done on it while you're at a truck stop taking your break instead of sitting in a waiting room of a dealership. Parts for them are easy to find and they're cheap. And we can get decent fuel mileage with them without spending a ton of money. And we want you to do that with cash. We don't want you to borrow money, or certainly not to go into a lease to go into business, especially if it's your first time. So that when this kind of environment comes around and the rates do fall in the gutter, you don't have a truck payment that you're having to worry about. And you may say, well, I don't have $15,000 cash. Well, my answer to that is, well, wait till you do. What's the hurry? If you go into business and you're undercapitalized, all you're going to do is fail, and you're going to be out of business, not by your choice. Why not just wait and do it the right way to begin with? How long does it take to save $15,000? And if you can't do that, maybe you ought not be in business anyway, because it's not going to be an automatic thing. You're going to go into business and all of a sudden have enough money to save money, especially if you have a truck payment. So that's what we recommend. There's lots of used trucks out there. There's going to even be more after this little fiasco is over with. And there's a way that you can do your homework and find out the condition of the truck, what it's, who's owned it in the past and what it's gone through, and all that's available to you if you're willing to do the work. Take it to a mechanic and have it inspected by somebody that you know and trust. Find out what needs to be done to it. And then what we do is we take that $10,000 or $15,000 truck and we put about that much more in it initially, and make it roadworthy, make it reliable and safe, and put some comforts in it for our drivers, and we put it on the road. And then over the course of the first few months, we find other things that we didn't catch that you really don't know until you start pulling freight with it. And then we probably spend another $10,000 on it. So we end up with having about 40 grand or so in a truck typically. But now we've got a truck that's good, that makes money for a driver, makes money for me, the owner. And the truck's paid for, you know. So when rates drop out like this, you know, I mean, I'm not making the money I was making back in, you know, January, February, March, but we're not losing money, and we're not sending anybody home, and we'll be there when this thing is over with, and we'll still be positioned at that point in time to take advantage of the rates that are going to eventually come back. And then we'll be making lots of money again, you know. So
I want to add something about, I used this analogy with Zeke the other day, because when you're looking for a $10,000 truck, there's something you need to understand. I took my mom and dad to a NASCAR race in 2000, kind of at the height of NASCAR's popularity, and tickets were pretty expensive. So I found the tickets that I could afford, and so we sat in an area that was pretty rowdy. And my dad made the comment afterward that, you know, when you sit in the cheap seats, you kind of sit around cheap people, and because it was a whole lot rowdier environment than my mom and dad had ever been in. And
what track was this?
Charlotte. We ended up sitting between turns 1 and 2, about 4 rows up, for the All-Star race. And there was a guy with a Wrangler hat, and every time an Earnhardt went by, he stood and raised his beer. You know, that was a 150 lap race, and you know, there was 2 Earnhardts in that race too. You know, so I mean, he got quite a workout. You know, the guy beside me started drinking about 10 o'clock in the morning. So the time the race started, he was on another planet. You know, but anyway, you have to understand that when you're looking at $10,000 trucks, you're going to get lied to. You know, because, you know, there's the process. You find the truck, you call, you ask some questions. Hey, I need the VIN number. Can I do an oil sample? Can I do a dyno? Can I do an ECRM report? And from the time they say, sure, to actually, I don't think Zeke, he's looked at 4 or 5 trucks. I think he got 1 VIN number, you know, but you have to understand it. You're not going to walk out the front door and trip over the truck that you need. You have to be willing to walk away from a lot of deals. You have to be willing to put $500 down. Okay, well, hang on to that truck for me. You know, it's going to be a week before I can come look at it, but I'm really interested, and I'm willing to give $500 away non-refundable. You can't get in a hurry, and you can't get the fever and go buy the first truck you see. You've got to take your time. And that is a very foreign concept to a lot of Americans. We live and have for the last 50 years in instant gratification. I want something, I'm going to go find it, I'm going to track it down, and I'm going to take it home. You can't do that when you're looking for a truck. You have to take your time, especially if you have a limited amount of money. Now, we've taken some risks on some trucks, and we bought, well, at least 2 of them sight unseen. You know, just, okay, yes, that's fine. But we're in a position where we can risk a little bit more. But if that's all the money you got, you have got to go very slowly. But if you do, and you find that right truck, where that's going to put you 5 years from now is going to be way, way ahead of someone that either got in a hurry looking for the old truck or went and said, okay, well, I'll just pay the lease payment and I'll go get a brand new one. You'll be so much further ahead than those people. But you have to slow down, and you have to be willing to learn about these basics, about insurance, about maintenance, about who gets paid and how they get paid. And you've got to be willing to change your mind and change your identity of who you're going to be, because you're no longer a truck driver. You have got to take that truck driver identity and throw it away. um, it's it's imperative. You have to. You're not a truck driver anymore. You are a business owner. So maybe you need to network with some people in your area that are just in business. Maybe they run a restaurant, or maybe they run a construction outfit, and have them teach you about business, because those principles transcend every industry. This one's different because the barrier of entry is so low. Any fool can go get a truck and a license and go pull freight and be moderately successful. But then when a market like this hits and you get that stool kicked out from under you, boy, it's a long way from your nose to the floor. And when you hit, I can testify from experience that it hurts really, really bad. And I have to remind myself occasionally that it wasn't very long ago that I believed it was over. I believed I would never drive for Landstar again. I would never own a truck again, that I had screwed it up so bad. And I had really,
Yeah, I wouldn't have been.
but I did that. I can't blame the government. I can't blame the brokers. I can't blame the agents. I can't blame Landstar. It was me. I did it. It's so much easier to go find somebody else to blame. And it's really, really difficult to look in the mirror and decide that you're the one that screwed this up. But that's the truth, so.
But, it's hard to do this because you have to work. You see, you can get in this business so easy. You can walk into any dealership without doing any of this work and get you a truck with no money down. Okay. And you think that because you're buying a newer truck that you're not going to have problems, or you're going to pay for a warranty, and that's going to keep you from having those problems. And every day, hundreds, if not thousands of those people find out that wasn't the right way, but they don't understand. They go, well, that's the only way that I know how to do it. We have told people what we do. We don't keep this a secret. We tell everybody that wants to listen what we do. You know how many people actually do it? Very, very, very few. Very few. Because it requires work, and it requires accountability, and it requires saving money, which nobody can do, So we don't have to make this. We don't have to keep. It's not secret sauce. We tell everybody how to do it, and still can't, seem to make people understand that this is how you go in, especially the first time. If you're, look, it's not my first time. I still do it this way because this is the way that you survive what's going on right now. This is the way we survived in 2009. It's the way we survived in 2014. It's the way we survived in 2019, even before the virus, after everybody made all the money they could possibly put stuff in their pockets in 2018. So it's the only way I know of that this business is bulletproof, no matter what the economy is, no matter what the market is. But you've got to be willing to do what you just said, Chris. You got to be willing to spend the time and spend the effort to go find the truck, do the homework, and then you can't just sit in it and hold the steering wheel and run down around the road. You've got to work on it. You've got to get it worked on. You've got to fix things that are wrong with it, because the reason it cost $10,000 is because the guy who owned it before didn't. Okay. And that's all it's worth now. We can find trucks that are older that sell for $20,000 and $30,000. Okay. But it's because they were taken care of. Now, if you've got the money, that's the one to buy, because the work's already been done, or it wasn't run down to where, you have to spend $20,000 or $30,000 to bring it back to a reliable situation. But if people don't have 10 or 15,000, certainly don't have 20 or 30. So that's why this business model works for them, those people, because they can then save the money to buy the truck and then cash flow the repairs. Because you know as well as I do, if you're going to get in a truck and drive it yourself, you can make $2,500 to $3,500 a week at Landstar. And you could take the money and then fix the truck up the first few weeks you've got it, or first few months you've got it. So we're just telling you how to make money. That's what we're doing. We're telling you how to be successful, especially at Landstar or anywhere. It doesn't have to be at Landstar, but you can come to Landstar and you can let them take 35% of your money, and you can still make $2,000 or $3,000 a week in a truck that you pay cash for. Even now, even now.
Yeah.
If I were driving your truck right now, Chris, instead of you, or if you owned the truck yourself, you'd be making that right now in the middle of virus, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
because my income throughout this whole thing has not gone down a penny.
No.
And it's just funny. I mean, what was it I did last year? 98. I think it was 98,000.
Just shy of 100. Yeah.
Yeah. Just shy of 100. And this year we came into the year and I'm like, okay, goal number 1, break 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to buy 5 more trucks, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And 2020 said, nay, not so fast. Yeah. I mean, there's still, I mean, y'all, it's only May. I mean, there's still, we could still add 3 more trucks this year pretty easily without breaking a sweat.
And probably will, only because there are going to be some really good buys that are, there's going to be a lot of guys don't come out of this. Okay. Now, the majority of them, they're trucks I don't want. Okay. I've said this many times. If I won the free Landstar truck, I would drive it straight from wherever they gave it to me to the nearest dealership, and I'd sell it for whatever cash they give it for me. Okay. And I'm assuming it would bring probably in excess of $100,000 since it cost $150,000. And I would turn around and go buy about 5 or 6 trucks with that money and let them keep that truck. So most of the people that are going to go out of business are going to have trucks that I don't want, but there are going to be trucks out there. There's going to be guys out there that just are going. They were close to retiring anyway. They've had their truck for a long time. Probably took really good care of it, And this is like, I'm not going to go. I'm not coming out of this. This is a good time to retire. Here we go. Find that guy. That's your truck. There's your truck right there. Okay. But the point, but you've got to have the money when you go buy it. Okay. So, if this is not the time for you, then look, Dave Ramsey says, go deliver pizzas or something. Okay. Do something to get where you can say, it doesn't take a long time to save $15,000. Okay. That doesn't take a long time. If you're an owner or operator, you're out there making $2,000 or $3,000 a week. Stop cigarettes next week. Okay. Stop whatever it is that you spend money on, and, and put money away. If not to buy a truck, you should have money put away anyway. And, people that aren't sweating right now are the people that had savings. All right. The people in Washington, D.C. crying for somebody to help them out are because they're broke and they're desperate and they want somebody to save their ass. And I'm sorry, I'm just like, I'm sorry about the people with the virus. I hate that people are going to get sick and die, but by God, we're going to put 300 million people in the funeral home because a few thousand are going to get sick. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I digress.
I want to circle back to one thing you said. I do not desire to get rid of brokers, as in forcibly remove them, right? But I do believe they're going away. You can go back to, I think it's episode 21 of this show, from when it was American Truck Driver, and I interviewed a broker named Pete Emmeheiser, and he said, I won't retire as a broker. He knows the end is nigh for the broker model. Right. And I think everything surrounding this virus is going to accelerate that. But we will not Um, we will not see brokers in the future, and that doesn't take. It's not going to take some force. It's just going to go away because it's going to be replaced by something better that's going to connect us directly to the customers, and then you don't have to worry about it. But I need to either get Pete back on here or somebody and have a big, long, nice talk about blockchain and how that's going to change everything. But force and coercion and aggression does not bring you good things. Sometimes I think it feels good, for you to go up to the Capitol and drive around the circles and demand this and demand that, and you get this camaraderie going. But pointing guns at people does not get them to do what you want them to do.
It's kind of it's such a lost opportunity here. The trucking industry had a chance to really, really, really gain favor with the public. We've had an image problem for a long time anyway. Everybody hates trucks. Most people hate truck drivers. They're arrogant. They cut you off. They flip you off. They tailgate you. We had a chance here. We had the opportunity to really, really, really basically save this country in terms of keeping people in goods and supplies and whatnot. And we did. But now we've got people up in Washington, D.C. and lots of other places making an ass out of themselves and totally undoing all the good that was done, by the industry being, quote, essential and continuing on. Why didn't we just continue on and not ask, for respect? Why didn't we just let it be organic? But no, we have to form a group called the Disrespected Trucker, okay? And parade around and demand, what I can't wait is for them to, when they pull off eventually up there, the perimeter of hazardous waste that's going to be left up there, that now all the news shows are going to just go around and video that. Here's where the standoff occurred, folks. Here's what it looks like. And it takes 38 hazmat teams to clean that up, next week, when they finally do leave. But we had a chance to really, really, really shine in an opportunity. And instead of doing it, we sat around and said, hey, we demand respect. We demand this. We demand that. We demand it. And all the good that was done has now been negated, when you have to make people respect you. Well, maybe what you do is not respectable,
Yeah. And a lot of people don't hear that. No. They don't.
If what you do is worthy of respect, you don't have to demand people to give it to you. Okay?
Yeah. So going forward, it's May 12th. My prediction is the market is back to complete normal 4 weeks from now. If not, the whole world's going to be on fire, and we're going to be in a civil war, and we're going to have a whole separate set of issues to worry about. I have not complied with a lot of, and this is a, you want the government to force people to do things a certain way. Well, I mean, what are you going to do if they don't? There's lots of people who told me I had to wear a mask. I ain't worn a mask, and I won't. Right? It's a microcosm of the whole thing. Well, you have to. No, I don't. I'm not going to. And, so then what do you do? Oh, they're not doing what they're told. Okay, well, good luck to you. But there's an opportunity coming Um, if we, I'm not ready to predict that we're going back to 2018 rates for a little while. It's possible. But if we do, if we have a June, July, August, September, October, November that just rocks and rolls, that's an opportunity for you to get your stuff together. That's your opportunity, not to sit at the house and say, I'm finally getting what I'm worth, and so I'm now going to work 3 days a week at $350 a mile. No, 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 no. No, you put that big truck in the wind and you start grabbing gears and you put a load on it every day and you go out in that big market and you make every single possible dime you can and you pile up big, big piles of cash. And if you've got one of those problematic new trucks, you need to sell that bitch and go get you a good old used dependable truck. If you've ever wanted to be a fleet, trucks will be on sale. Go buy you a couple, But remember, if you're going to be a fleet, you're also going to have to be a teacher and a trainer, because you're going to have to go find people to drive them that will drive them as if they were theirs.
People think that being a fleet means you have to manage trucks. Not really. To be a fleet, you have to be a leader of people, because those trucks can't drive themselves. And even if they did, they wouldn't drive themselves the way that they should be driven. So the trick to being a fleet is being able to attract, retain, educate, motivate people. And not a really, really easy thing to find in this industry. Most people became owner operators because they didn't want to be around other people. The idea of an independent trucker is because they didn't play well with other people. The reason they did it was they don't know business, but they know they don't want a job. Okay. So let me just buy a truck and be a truck driver. But the problem with that is, when you buy a truck, now all of a sudden you're not a truck driver. You're a businessman. And so that's the whole problem with this situation, is that we have people that are truck drivers that aren't business people. That's the whole problem. Now, if you're going to be a fleet, you just multiplied that, because now not only are you a good businessman, but you're probably a very poor leader of people, since that's what you tried to get away from to begin with, is you're antisocial. You don't like being around people. You certainly don't like having to help other people. But that's what being a fleet's all about. And then on top of that, now you're an employer. Now you have other people whose livelihood depends on you and your leadership and your security, your stability.
And
that's
you're
a
never
big
off.
step. And you're never off. That's a big step.
Like, for example, you're recording a podcast and a $3 and something mile load pops up, and you got to text one of your drivers to call and get it from one of your other drivers while we're doing this, because in this market, you can't pass up $3 a mile. You better get on it,
My friends, they don't really understand. They go, well, when are you off? I'm like, well, I'm off all the time. Well, when do you work? Well, I work all the time. Well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I have technology. I have, I have to react to whatever happens. I don't know when it's going to happen. I could go all day and literally do nothing. Okay. Or I could spend the rest of the day recovering canceled loads, or a truck with a maintenance problem, or what, so that's not for everybody. There's some people that go, by God, I'm off. I can wait till tomorrow. No, we can't. Because you're going to lose that driver, you're going to lose that customer. There's a price that you pay for this, but there's also a price that you get paid for doing this. And you can't get one without the other. I encourage everybody, to do all they can and make as much money as they can. But when you cross that threshold of being an employer, there is a sacred trust there that just completely supersedes everything else. Because, I don't worry about me in this virus. My biggest concern was that I don't want it to affect one single one of my drivers, And so all the things that I can do to supplement that, I do. It's probably no big secret. Landstar is paying a $50 extra commission, whatever you want to call it, extra pay, supplement, accessorial on every load during this pandemic. Well, I would say that probably a lot of fleets are paying some of that to the driver and keeping some of it because they own the truck and they have risk too. But I made the decision right away that I wasn't going to keep any of that money. I passed every bit of that money completely, directly, and in full to the drivers because I needed them to not feel like this was going to, be a problem for their income. I can absorb it. I got drivers that couldn't absorb losing $300, $400, $500 a week, But that's the mentality you have to have when you decide that you're going to be a fleet. It's not about the number of trucks you got. It's about the number and the quality of people that you got. That's what being a fleet is. So I don't think we meant to talk about that, but when you brought it up, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of it because it's a logical step in building an asset. Buying a truck and becoming an owner operator is basically creating a job for yourself. But if you're not driving the truck makes no income. And so if you want to have an asset that produces income without you actually driving it, then you've got to have somebody to drive it for you.
Right.
And you got to have at least 5 of them going to really build a comfortable income for yourself, enough that you wouldn't have to have some other source of income, but just buying one truck and putting a driver in it, it might give you a little supplemental income throughout the year, but you're not going to live on it, in 2 or 3, but it really takes 5 to have a profitable enough business that you can not do anything else and just manage those trucks. But you have to be a leader. You can't be a tyrant. You can't be a slave driver, because people will quit, they won't put up with you. If you don't maintain the truck, if you don't take care of what you're supposed to, if you're not keeping them loaded enough, they're not making enough money, they can just go somewhere else.
I heard a saying one time that it's always stuck with me. It's a little cheesy and corny, but it's true. And when we're hiring drivers, a lot of people are very, very impressed with what we know, the knowledge that we have, and they want that knowledge. But the saying is people don't really care what you know until they know that you care. And that's the thing that we do here and that's why we have the type of mentoring fleet that we have, is because not only do we give them a good job, but we care enough about them that we're teaching them how to do this on their own. We're not going to have our drivers very long. They're going to be here for a year and a half, and they're probably going to be gone because we're going to have taught them everything that they need now to be successful. And we've given them the opportunity to save the money and to position themselves. And we've taught them everything that we know about business and about trucking and about, this industry, and with the idea that they're going to take that and leave. Now a lot of people would just, that would be a problem for them because they want to have, a human asset, that they can count on. But that's just not fair. That's not fair to them. I have a guy that I've always admired that was a football coach in Georgia, went on to build the biggest insurance industry in the world at the time. Now he's sold it and gone now, but his name is Art Williams, and he has a book and a philosophy called Pushing Up People. And his philosophy was that if you help enough other people get what they want, you can't not get what you want. And that's the idea that we're working around here, is that not only do we want to make this successful for Blue Ribbon, but what makes it successful for us is because we help enough other people get what they want. And so that's the caring part. And they know that we care, and we show it every day in the way that we treat them and the way that we talk about them and the way that we, mentor them and so forth. So if you want to know what our secret is when it comes to fleet building and people building, just keep that in mind, is that we not only do we share our knowledge, but we let them know that we also care and we're willing to share, and we're not afraid that that's going to hurt us. It doesn't bother me that we're going to have people leaving in a year and a half and going, I guess, into competition with us, if you want to call it that. But I look at it this way: we get a much better quality individual if that's what they aspire to do, is to be a successful owner operator. Man, that makes me a much better driver than somebody that just wants to come here and be a driver for the rest of their life. I'll take the former of that any day over the latter.
Yep. Speaking
of that, if you're listening to this, we do hire drivers. We are planning on buying a few more trucks as soon as this mess cleans up. So if you want to talk about that with us, or you want to get more information on what it takes to be a driver and to be a part of our program and get that knowledge and education and nurturing and mentoring, then Chris, tell them how to do it.
Well, you go to blueribbonlogistics.com, click on Drive for Us. There is a form there that you can fill out and give us some information, and we will get in touch with you, and we'll set up an interview, a video interview, just on Zoom, just like this, and we'll talk about who you are and where you came from and where you want to be. You can, if you have questions just in general, you can email us at chris@blueribbonlogistics.com, larry@blueribbonlogistics.com. We're on Facebook at Blue Ribbon Logistics. And I guess that's pretty much it, so you can look at us on our website. You can find us on social media, and you can send us an email if you have questions, and YouTube. Don't forget YouTube, blueribbonlogistics.com/YouTube. All the podcast episodes, and we're working on doing some more content. I did the one video about, does Landstar really take 35% of my money? And it's been a really popular video. Yes. I get lots of good feedback on that video every week. So I encourage you to check out the YouTube channel. We got to get to producing and put some more of this basic stuff, breaking down a lot of these different facets of owning a truck. And I think we're going to be able to, if Zeke decides to buy a truck, we'll probably use him as a guinea pig to, go through the process of how that works. But think about that. Here's a guy, a dad got a bunch of kids, and even in this market is thinking about buying a truck because he knows with our help and influence and our guidance that he can go out and make, $150,000 a year, and he can build a fleet. He and his wife are both really fired up about having their own fleet and building an asset that will last. So if you have any questions, send us an email. Until then, next time we will see you later.
Take care, everybody.